All right, cellar dwellers. Dan gave me a hard time because I was doing these vertically before. So, I just got done watching The Son of Dracula, a 1943 movie. And actually, I just got done with Wolfman. I think it was the last movie I watched. And Evelyn something. She was the main female role in that movie. Was actually a pretty significant character in this movie as well. She wasn't the lead, but she was definitely a significant character. So, I have an outline for this. And while Henry's playing, I watched this with Henry today, so that's fun. Trying to watch a 1943 film while your son is screaming in your face. Quick plot summary. So, he is the son of Dracula, and they call him Alucard, Count Alucard, because that is Dracula, spelled backwards. He shows up, he's supposed to show up to this party that, I don't remember the friggin' names, the two main female characters are throwing for Count Alucard to show up. Count Alucard does not show up, but they see his luggage at the train station. So at the train station, the doctor, the main person, the main guy trying to figure out what's going on in this movie, notices that Alucard backwards spells Dracula. So that's where the suspicion starts. Very similar to Dracula, he has to lay in his own bed, his own soil. He's the undead. The biggest difference in this movie is that the main female character, and I don't know why I can never remember names, but the main female character wants to be eternal. She fears death, and you don't find that out till later on in the movie. So she fears death, so she wants to marry Count Alucard because she knows him, because he's Count Dracula, the son of Count Dracula. There's this professor that the doctor calls. He gets all this information on... gross. They get all this information on... He gets all this information on Count Dracula and then suspects that Count Alucard is a vampire. So the fiance of this main character ends up... She's the one marrying Count Alucard for eternal life because she fears death. And he actually ends up being the hero in this movie because not only does he end up killing Count Alucard, Count Dracula, he also kills his fiancée, who is married Count Alucard, and she wants to bring her fiancé, the living, into her life as an eternal being with her. So this was a whole scheme for her to have eternal marriage with the real true love of her life, the living, when she is the undead. So he ends up finding Dracula's tomb where he sleeps in his soil from his homeland and ends up burning it. But before he can burn it, Count Dracula catches him there and tries to kill him while his tomb is burning. And then the doctor and the police officer all find out where Count Dracula's tomb is, and they head there. But the fiancé had already burnt it, so the doctor's like, I know where he went, and that's because he went to his undead fiancé's grave. He knew where it was because she told him in jail. I know some of this isn't making sense, but ultimately he ends up burning her grave too, her tomb, which kills the vampire. She's a female vampire. So this movie was a lot better than, I think it was 1941 Dracula that I watched with Bela Lugosi. It was better because it's only 2 years later. It had some great special effects in it, and those special effects included when Count Alucard would go from a bat to being Count Dracula. Well, not being, but being in his other form as Count Dracula. They had this effect where he was flying, and it would actually look like the bat was floating for a second, and then out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but the bat would turn into Count Dracula. And when the bat turns into Count Dracula, it actually looked like a seamless event. So what I think they were doing was cutting the film, and where the bat floats, Count Dracula's back would always be to his back would be to the camera. So when you cut that film, it looks like the bat turns into Count Dracula. It was actually kind of cool. And they had some smoky effect because vampires can travel as a mist or as a wolf or as a bat. Most of us know them as bats. So they had the smoky, misty effect that they were using mainly for the female cast member. I'm fucking so bad with names. So, was I sucked in? When Henry would allow me to be sucked in, I was fully invested in this movie. Stellar acting. The wolf man, I wonder if she's on. She's obviously got to be on this cover. Sorry, I know this video is super shaky, and I truly don't care. You're kidding, right? Evelyn Ankers, that's her. Evelyn Ankers. What was I saying? She's actually a really good actor. That's not what I was going to say, but she's actually a really good actress. Was I sucked in? When Henry would allow me to be sucked in, I was totally invested in this movie. The music, we just did an episode about the original King Kong, and you can totally tell that this movie, the music was added after the fact versus being part of the normal track or being played while people were acting. So that's something that stands out to me now because I was listening for it. So that was interesting. Did it work? It did. Creates tension. And yeah. Lasting impact. Does it have a lasting impact? It does, because I watched the 1941 Dracula with Bela Lugosi first, and then I watched Nosferatu, which was a silent film that helped me understand the Dracula, 1941 Dracula, better. And then I watched Son of Dracula, which, this dude looks like Vincent Price on this. Like, I've looked at this a few times, and only seeing Vincent Price in one movie, which was House on Haunted Hill, every time I look at this, he's got that pencil mustache going on. That's why I think it's Vincent Price, but it's clearly not. So, having seen this was better. This is not Dracula. It is Dracula's son, his offspring, because Dracula was killed in the 19th century, according to this movie, or late 18th century. So acting overall was better, visual effects were better, music was better, and it made a lasting impact because all of those things together show that the 1941 Dracula wasn't quite up to par. Even the storytelling was weird. And then Nosferatu being a silent film, still one of my favorites that I've watched so far. It is my favorite that I've watched so far. It was better because less is more, like Dan said. And then, did VHS matter? I gotta take this off my list of, like, credentials, because VHS plays to the horror genre in general, whether it's 1980s slasher or 1930 whatever, or 1922 Nosferatu, which was silent. So I really enjoyed the movie. It was much better, like I said, than the previous two Draculas that I've watched. So I think this one was really good. They did a really good job. Just the acting alone made such a difference in the storytelling. A 9 is way up there. Like, that's a fucking movie, man. A 9 would be a fucking movie. So I don't remember what I gave everything else. It's been too far in between. I think I'm going to do an 8. 8.5. Fuck it. 8.5 stars. Done. Peace.